I want to welcome everybody to the National Links Trust webinar on municipal golf. I think this is the fifth one we've done, and we've been all over the country, from New Orleans to Kansas to Florida, and we're excited to have Brian Connolly and Dave Andrews join us today here in the heat of the summer down there, and we should have a really good discussion. I think the course that we're going to be talking about, the park, the facility that we're going to be talking about, the park has really gotten a lot of rave reviews here in its opening days, in the first few months that it's been open after lying dormant for a number of years. And it's really exciting to talk to two of the people who are bringing that vision to life. And so thank you, Brian and Dave, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
A little bit of a background on Brian and Dave. Brian Connolly is a PGA member, is the general manager there at the park. He's an alumnus of the University of Georgia with a bachelor's of business administration. Brian is the general manager of the park, a 19-year member of the PGA. He was instrumental in opening 3 golf facilities in Georgia before joining the team in West Palm. Most recent Georgia project was the Bobby Jones golf course renovation in downtown Atlanta, featuring Golf House Georgia and the acclaimed Boone's restaurant. Brian has served in a governance role at the section level, including a term as president of the Georgia section PGA. He and his wife, Jessica, are proud parents of a 4-year-old boxer, Sully, and a Maine Coon cat, Alistair. In the fall, Brian will be watching the Georgia Bulldogs, while the rest of the year he's a diehard Atlanta Braves fan and avid fisherman. I'm not sure we got to really tune in that closely for a while for the dogs. That schedule is pretty puffy, but we'll be tuning in. Dave Andrews is the director of The Path. Dave currently serves as the director of The Path, a native of Cook Forest, PA. He grew up in a small town before pursuing an undergraduate and graduate degree in sports management at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Dave spent 14 years serving 4 YMCA associations in Pennsylvania, Florida, New York City, and Atlanta. During his career with the YMCA, Dave was able to support the needs of local communities while breaking down barriers and building bridges for the next generation. Additionally, Dave has served as a sports management adjunct for over 10 years. Now, Dave believes his purpose is to serve the most disconnected kids in the community through his passion to grow the game of golf. Dave lives in South Florida with his wife, Ashley, and his children, Atlas and Andy Rose. When they are not walking the golf course, you can find them walking their dog, Birdie, through the streets of West Palm Beach. Dave, I've got a dog named Birdie as well, so good choice on the name.
Thank you. It's a softball.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I guess the concept of open golf, which is, I think, sort of defines what the park is all about. How do you guys define what open golf means?
Man, all right, let's start with that one. You know, it has to do with being both actively accessible and passively inclusive, I guess, a way that we look at it. We want to not redefine golf, but just see it in a different, or portray it in a different manner. Not in a way that is an indictment on traditional heavy long-standing golf facilities and or ways, but that there's just more than one way to see this game. You know, I think over here, at least we do it very well in the elite world, with the facilities that you see showcased many times on the weekends in either majors or on the PGA Tour, with you know, the best competing on incredible stages. But that's not all that the game has to give. Obviously, those of us that play it. So open golf is to kind of give a different perspective to, hopefully, this new golfer, this whatever you want to call it, modern golfer, crossover golfer, whatever, but people who are curiously picking up a golf club in some way, shape, or form, maybe or maybe not on a green grass facility, but finding a game that is not as you know, exclusive as it may look sometimes on TV. and that's kind of where the open golf came from. We all thankfully have unique definitions, which I also think is brilliant about it. It kind of means different things to different people depending on how you have come to the game of golf, and what does golf mean for you? Is it a career? Is it a hobby? Is it a job otherwise? And from that point, as long as it impacts your life, that's kind of where we want open golf to go from our perspective here at the park.
And that concept was part of the design process, was part of the whole reason why the park has come to be. Maybe we can take a quick step back, and I know you guys came into it a little bit later in the process, but give our listeners sort of the quick rundown of how the park came to opening day, which is 3 months ago, and then we can talk about how it's gone since then.
Well, it's been like it's a multi 3 or 4 year project if you consider the factions of organizations or groups of people who tried to get this facility back up and running again with the city. I believe, Seth and the gang are the third group of people who attempted, and obviously the ones who were successful in doing it. I became involved officially with the park in April of last year, and then started putting together the team of which Dave is now a part of over last summer. Golf course was thrown in first for multiple reasons, one of which Gil's schedule played a large part in. And the physical plant came out of the ground in the last half of last year and first half of this year. And, open golf was part of basically just a brand exercise, a branding exercise with a crew that we contracted out of New York, who took a unique perspective at golf being not of the industry or any of them actually playing the game. And, it just, when it came off the screen as a presentation to the executive committee of the trust and myself and a couple of, at that time, members of the team, we just kind of saw it and thought, wow, that's it. It had just had that kind of tingly hair on your arms feeling of, in 2 words, we just summed up this immense and incredible project. So we've been defining open golf since then, and we'll continue to define it as we go forward, from now being open, going over 3 months since April. I'll let Dave comment on how open golf obviously speaks to the side of the facility and the project that he's responsible for, that is basically one of a kind as far as I know in the golf industry.
I think open golf for us it encompasses so much, for those that are golfers and those that are not. Our mission at the park is to positively impact lives. And in order to positively impact lives, you can't have proverbial walls surrounding a golf course. You can't have an elitist mindset when you walk on property. You have to be welcoming, you have to be fun, you have to be authentic, you have to be who you are. You have to be, most importantly, inviting. And I think for us, and specifically speaking for the Path and the community programs that we've created, we're recruiting people that have never been to a golf course before. We're the people that have never touched a club, that have never even walked foot on a golf course property, whether they felt like they belonged to, or they didn't have the right clubs or the money or whatever they need. You can't do that without an open mindset and an open golf. And the period really accentuates that, because it kind of, puts that little period at the end that just says it's open golf, period. It's very similar to Just Do It. You can define it in many different ways, and Nike's done that over the years. I think open golf for us can mean inclusivity of people that we want to come to the park. We can define that as an opportunity for education to happen inside a golf course, which you typically wouldn't find. Open golf is just so much more than just golf, or what people do on at a golf course. It's the lifestyle, it's the brand that we represent.
Dave, I've got a lot of follow-up questions, but I do want to take a quick step back and just talk a little bit about the governance, how the park is set up. The land is owned by the municipality of West Palm Beach, right? Brian?
That's correct.
And the foundation was established, raised a good bit of money, really an impressive amount of money. We don't need to get into it. It's in the press, and it's also something that probably isn't replicable in a lot of communities. But I think this governance, the way this is set up, is something that is replicable. And so maybe if you could just talk a little bit about how it's set up and how that allows you guys to have the freedom to be as inclusive and be as open as you want to be, and then start all these programs that are going to positively impact lives.
Yeah. Basically, the structure is, as you mentioned, it's a city-owned property with a 50-year land lease to a 501c3 trust, which was the foundation that got the project off the ground through the fundraising effort. It was the legal entity that entered the lease agreement with the city, and then the lease agreement outlined, or at least the criteria of which the city required us to manage the facility, but thankfully gave the facility the flexibility to manage it in a successful, hopefully successful way, without the binding bureaucracy sometimes that you see in city-run facilities. So we use the word nimble quite a bit. Seemingly, we have a few templates, one of which was the property I came from in Atlanta, but there's not a playbook to follow. We're kind of writing it as we go still. So being nimble and being flexible to augment our operations as we see necessary, without the overarching kind of government hand of the city, will allow us to obviously hopefully be very successful in this. And then the foundation, once I got on board last year, just to kind of set us up for future growth and scalability, created an LLC to essentially manage and be the operating arm of the trust to handle the day-to-day activities of the golf park. The commonality, or the template that I think is replicable, is understanding through this partnership that you have two entities, both with a common mission, but different means to accomplish that. And you remove the incessant, I don't say greed, but need to profit from it. That's not to say we're not going to be sustainable and profitable, but without anyone looking for any return fiscally of an investment, so to speak, you really take the pressure off of everybody to perform in a manner that's, this is a game. It's not a lot of games outside of professional sports are tried to set up profit centers, but many do, but thankfully we're not. We don't have a person or persons of vested interest that we're trying to provide a return on a daily or annual basis. We're trying to seriously and genuinely work towards our mission, and that's our beacon. That's our litmus as to whether we're successful or not, if we accomplish our mission. And we've been put into a very sound financial situation to achieve that mission. And no one is going to financially profit because of it, but hopefully the city and the founders that made this possible, what they get back of it is the satisfaction to know, as David said, we impacted lives. So it's on a large scale, but it, depending on the market or the area of which a template like this can happen, you don't need the fundraising of the amount that we created here, or even what we created in Atlanta, which was no small chump of change either. It just all depends on finding your niche, or finding that emotional attachment to the mission of the facility. For the municipality and the foundational arm to both have and share in a common mission-driven goal. And then you figure out what the finances are to get that established, whether it's $2 million or $50 million. It can be any and all between.
Yeah, I think that's right. The municipalities are not in the the business of operating golf courses, or, you know, it's not their traditional business. They do a lot of other great things well. If you've got a group of passionate citizens who believe in the power of the game to change people's lives, I think aligning those two in a way that makes sense for both parties is something that can be replicable at any scale in any community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think part of that, right? It's not just the golf, not just the golf courses, but what you can achieve in the community through various programs. And I know the path has been instrumental in the story so far of the park. David, could you just maybe go into a little bit more detail about what you guys are trying to accomplish and the programs that you're working on? And, are you partnering with other nonprofits to do this? Or are you trying to create stuff sort of whole cloth?
Sure. So when I was brought in, as mentioned on the intro, I have a background in the YMCA. So my background was in executive leadership. So I've oversaw boards, fundraised, built communities, community cultivation, to built programs inside the branch, as well as have a fiscal responsibility. So very much a master of many hats. And when challenged at this particular role was to create mission-driven programs that are going to impact the community. And essentially, just as everything else here, it was a blank slate. We had a golf course built, and we had some new buildings, and 5 of us were living in a trailer. There was about 200 square feet and filled with a bunch of sand and a dog. And we did what we could. And basically, I did the same thing that I did in my previous roles. Is I went out and started knocking on doors, meeting principals, meeting community leaders, listening to the needs of the community. There's no need to build any programs at the park that aren't going to benefit the community. And in order to do that, I had to first listen to everybody to understand the community. Being a non-native of West Palm Beach, in all my other roles, New York City, Atlanta, Jacksonville, Philadelphia, I had to do the same. And so at the park, we've created these community programs that are authentic in nature. They're inclusive, they're inviting. They're really designed to build the next generation of leaders. And in order to do that, we have a physical plant. We have 2 classrooms and a multi-purpose space, and then a golf course that's adjacent to, from a putting course to a par 3 course, and a short game area and driving range. We utilized all of our resources to figure out what we best could do. And then what we came up with was, we're going to do an after-school program to start. We're going to call it the Fairway Finders. And what that was is bringing kids in from Title I schools that are need-based. So kids that couldn't apply to these programs, they're referral-based systems from principals and other educators. So they come to us, we're taking the bottom of the barrel. We're taking the kids that have not another chance in their life, and they're coming to us, and we're giving them mentors. We're giving them teachers to help them and encourage them with their academics, getting them back on track. In addition, we're partnering with our PGA pros, and we're giving them free golf lessons. So not only are they coming in not expecting to come to a golf course, they're coming in learning about life, learning about their academics, and figuring out ways that they can better succeed, and also having the ability to learn a new game. 100% of our kids in the spring, and our 3 months are open, have never been exposed to the game of golf. All those kids now, I see them come back. They're asking for putters to check out and wedges. We've built trust in a community. In addition, to also help build those community programs, we've hired translators, and to these individuals that can come in to speak the same language as the kids that they have at home and at school, so their parents can understand what they're doing. You're not going to build a trust in the community if you're not speaking their same language. And our goal was to really encourage and lift up the whole family. We want to save a life. And our goal is not quantitative. We're not hoping for the end of the year having to say we touched 4,000 lives at the park. We want to say we saved 14 lives, 10 lives, 5 lives. We want to save a life. And I think that makes us a little bit different than anywhere else, because we drive that into our programs and our mission of how we operate. In the spring, we offered the Fairway Finders program. We offered golf, STEM, and art. And we have a family fun Friday nights that we have going on every single Friday. That's just a fun event for people to come out, picnic in the park. Last weekend, we did a movie in the park. In the fall, we're launching financial literacy ESOL classes, and a signature program that will be based for high school kids that have a paid internship and ability to have additional life lessons poured into a number of our mentors and our donors, and to give them an opportunity to apply into a college scholarship if they would want to. In addition, we recruit junior caddies. We do some career prep guidance. We really hope to really take a kid from kindergarten and keep them all the way through high school, keep them out of trouble, allow them to see that a golf course is a safe place. It's a place that you can not only learn and grow, but you can build a career here if you would like.
That's incredible stuff. And you've only been on board since November, so obviously you've made a lot of progress pretty darn quickly. So it's really, really commendable. When you talked about mentors and teachers, are those volunteers or staff members or a combination of both, or how does that work?
It's both. All of our staff are paid. So in my experience in the YMCA, we would recruit some volunteers and or some younger staff, and we'd put out a service and we would check that box. And that box was, was fitting because we could say we completed the program, but that wasn't an investment. We're fortunate here that we're leading the mission-driven arm to that and being able to have a blank slate, so to speak. And so I went out and I recruited the best teachers. I paid them a wage that they aren't getting in the school system for them to come in for a couple hours a day. I made sure I found the right people. And I think that's very pivotal for the success of any organization, is hiring the right person. I've never worked in the game of golf. I've always wanted to, but I've never had the ability to. I'm not PGA. I'm probably a 10 handicap. My son, that 9-year-old son, beats me daily. But one would argue that with my background in nonprofit and education, I'm probably the perfect person for this role. I put that as a chip on my shoulder because I want to make sure I find the right people to give back, that have the same passion, that have the same drive, that have the same ability to give back to the kids, that they come here every day knowing that they're going to change a life. I couldn't do that with volunteers. I couldn't do that with individuals that, just walk in and look for a job. So I went out to the school systems and looked for the right people. I would argue that our teachers, from art to STEM to our homework help and mentors, are probably some of the best school teachers in all of West Palm Beach. So much so that they're excited to come back, and they were only employed with us for a couple months before summer happened, and then the fall kicks it back in, and they're really excited to come back because they want to know that they're going to have an impact on a kid's life. Our mentors are a little bit different. We do have mentor programs that are in-house in nature. So we look at it and we vet that process. And so we're still working on the exact details of some of the deeper level mentoring, as far as the one-on-one, two-on-one type mentoring process. But we're keeping that in-house at the time because we want to make sure that we maintain the safety of the kids and everybody on the property.
That's great. When you went out to the community, was there anything that really surprised you about what you heard about what was needed? And then how are you guys addressing that there at the park?
I think when I went to the community, first and foremost, there was a shock that a golf course was opening and wanted to bring kids in to help them. I think that was the piece to me. Golf courses are everywhere here in Palm Beach County. From private to public. Not many golf courses that I know of are extending out free programs to kids who want them to come in to learn with a paid teacher and give you free golf lessons in the midst of everything else. That was a shock, almost like a catch. Even meeting with a new school that we're launching next fall, got through the whole entire presentation. Everybody's on board. The principal goes, okay, first question, what's the catch? What do you want from us? And I said, nothing. I want to change lives. I can't want something if I want to have an impact on the community. I can't put myself in front of that. And so that was the first thing that I noticed. From there, I think everything was pretty well received. I mean, I think speaking for itself, the property speaks for itself. I heard homelessness is a problem here in West Palm Beach, which we can't address. Physical activity and food was the other two areas that came to us. And so that kind of changed our goal of how much golf should be included with the kids, in addition to snacks and food that we provide to the kids that are part of the path. Just so the kids know when they leave this program, they can have as many snacks as they want. Snacks is probably the number 2 thing that they love other than golf. Number 3 is the education, which you can kind of probably assume that to be as much. But adding physical education to it, I mean, in a way that the kids are actually doing something. In today's technological era, you find more and more kids that are at home after school with some sort of device, and that's not here. We have technology, we have everything that what we need for kids, and we'll be able to manage the academic programs, but that's not our goal to teach from it. Our goal is to get them out, get them about, to make sure that they know that they're a part of something else.
Great. For the youth that were part of it this spring, did they sign up individually, or did they come through different programs or schools?
Great question. Initially, we started with 4 partner schools. To answer a question that you asked on the first question, we decided to only have partnered schools. We didn't decide to partner with any nonprofits, partially because our executive committee and our staff, and we've decided to really design our own programs and be able to determine our own destiny. A lot of times when you partner with other nonprofit organizations, you are running their program at your site, and that wasn't what we wanted or nor intended. And so, which was a mindset change for me, coming from the YMCA, because that was how we operated. But that was an exciting moment because we had the ability to be nimble, and to really determine the needs of the community. So when I started, I've sorted the schools in the surrounding area, and I looked exclusively for Title I schools. Those kids that are on free and reduced lunch, those kids that are on other financial scholarship programs, from after school to housing to clothing. I reached out to those principals, and we determined the need of 2 elementary schools that are 1.5 miles away from us, a middle school that is 2 miles away from us, and a high school that shares our driving range fence. And so that's where we started our partnership. In the fall, we will launch another elementary school and another high school, and potentially another middle school to pull the kids. I've pulled myself out of the equation of determining the need-based attribute of the requirement. I put the spots back on the principal, who then assigned a ESE coordinator or another coordinator at the school to help determine the kids that would be fitting for the program. And from there, we opened up an application process for them, so we can just know who they are, check in, check out, all this, the systematics. But that's how we found the kids.
This is great stuff. I know I'm learning a ton, so I really appreciate it. You mentioned the putting course, the range, and the lit par 3. Brian, it's funny, when here in DC, as we're going through our renovations at the R3 courses, we think it's essential to have those sort of pathways into the game, start at the driving range or the putting course and then move on. And it's interesting to hear sort of the parallels on the education and mission stuff, and then also sort of building new golfers. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the importance of having that sort of ladder up into the game, and how, and then maybe Dave can talk about how you guys are using that on the mission side.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the statistics, depending on where you see them from, who they're from, et cetera. I mean, this growth in the game right now is not in green grass. It scares some people. It sounds horrifying to some people in the industry. But the game is growing at a rate actually greater than even when we had the boom in the 90s. It's just not necessarily growing, like I said, in the traditional manner of 18-hole rounds played. But that doesn't mean that the high tide can't raise all ships. Driving ranges, top golfs, drive shacks, putting courses, par 3s, all these things I've heard statisticians call these the gateway drug, so to speak. And if things continue in the trend that in the very soon to be future will almost, I think the stat was there will be more off-course branded quantitative golfers than on-course golfers, or this quintessential hybrid golfer of those people who consume the game in a non-traditional manner, right? So, I'm not going to sit here and say that Gil and these guys had all of this already kind of preconceived 3 years ago when they were standing around in COVID and got this thing off the ground, but I'm very thankful that they built it in the way they did, because we're set up to essentially recruit, retain, tease, just get people curious at any aspect into the game. Whether you call it the gateway drug of the range or top tracer or top golf or non-traditional golf, whatever, if the people who play this game 5 years from now, 10 years from now are this hybrid crossover golfer, that's fine. They're playing golf, and there's a lot of different ways to play this game than, a Saturday morning tee time in a group of people at 8 o'clock with a standing game, handicaps and all this other stuff, and such a formatted, structured way in which we're used to doing it. And then, by the way, take 4.5 hours to do it. We've got the best of that to offer, but we also have all this other stuff too. So, I mean, hopefully we can reach the number of people, kind of, to put a quantitative number on it. We have a goal. We actually put it, I think, assigned a number to it, Dave, to in 10 years, basically put a golf club in 1 million people's hands. The only way we're going to do that is to take advantage of our infrastructure and what our property has to offer and get that done. And then we feel like if we can put a golf club in 1 million people's hands, then chances are we're going to impact a life, like Dave said.
I think for the foundational, the nonprofit, the education arm, so to speak, for the park, we love the property. The kids, I described it to a friend in the industry. I said, just pretend that you've never driven a car before in your life, and I show up for the first time to pick you up in a limo. And what does that experience do for you? Because that was your first experience. They've never been to a golf course before. They walk into a hilly St. Andrew style Himalayas putting course right outside the door of the path in the education building. They see it. They're not afraid of it. They want to go out. They want to putt. They want to be a part of it. The par 3 course is free for kids 17 and under. They can come back whenever they want. We have equipment for them to check out for free, putters, wedges, you name it. And in addition, there's also a snag course. Snag starts for starting new at golf, which is tennis balls, big face clubs with inflatables. And we also take that program mobile to local schools and camps and other nonprofits that might not have transportation in order to get here for different clinics and such. We were able to go to them. It's more than just the game of golf, and for kids to participate in these amazing facilities. Our STEM teacher goes out and tests grades and speeds and velocity. Also, they do agronomy lessons and how to grow grass and the different levels of sand. One night I saw them testing the wind and the atmospheric pressure in the STEM golf experiment for the day. So we're using the golf course not even just to play, but as a classroom itself in the game in the science world.
Now, is that the STEM stuff? I assume that's a separate staff member rather than the agronomic team at the park. Are those separated? Is there overlap? How does that work?
Nope. So they're separate. Our art teacher is a middle school art teacher. Our STEM teacher is a 4th grade science teacher at a Title I school.
Did that person have a golf background, or is that no? So they're learning as they go and then passing it along.
They are. Even our translator is learning. I sent her a glossary of golf terms. So when the coaches are coaching the kids who don't speak English, she can actually present the terms in a way that they would understand. So she's learning about the game of golf herself, and as well as she can communicate to the kids better.
Great. Brian, Dave mentioned how the kids love snacks, either first or second. Adults like snacks too. And I know part of the mission is to get people who wouldn't traditionally visit a golf course. And one of the ways that obviously is a way to do that is through an F&B program that's attractive. How's that gone so far? And what are the plans going forward?
It's gone great. So we have 2 outlets here. One is basically considered a turn house on steroids. That's our Cabana bar, the Cabana. It's been well received. It's an outside seated patio area. It just complements that entertainment It's almost like the entrance into that entertainment area on the golf course with the par 3 and the putting course and the range. It opened when we opened in April, and is basically just a hang. I mean, there's people there in the evenings, weekdays, weekends that aren't even here to play golf. They've played golf probably here. Maybe they haven't, but they're just in the community, in the neighborhood, and they come over here for great food, great price, good drinks, and a great atmosphere. It's fun. There's music playing. There's music playing on and around the golf course. It's just a neat vibe. It's just super, surprisingly, but happily, it's super family friendly and kid centric. There's obviously adult activity going on with cocktails and food and such, but right next to it, the kids are playing with Tonka trucks on the back lawn, and maybe an occasional, ride across the putting green, but it's all good and all good fun. And then of course, we're really anxious this fall of our flagship outlet with the house opening, which will be I guess a Florida seafood forward kitchen experience, a coastal kitchen experience with a la carte dining and some private dining opportunities overlooking the golf course, that will serve as a much needed food scene, as we're seeing here on this south end of the city and Dixie Avenue, and have built a very strong F&B culinary team with the recent hires of our director of F&B and our executive chef and now house general manager. So we're really excited in October to get that kicked off. We've had multiple requests for business meetings, casual lunches, wine activities, everything you could think of to come here with this just kind of this vibe and to partake in a food and beverage experience. And to kind of tag on that question you just asked Dave, and F&B also being part of the conversation, Dave and the Path, although they're unique to a golf facility, they're not on an island. You asked if the agronomy team was taking part in the STEM education of it. They are not at the moment, but the long-term plan is that there's an interwoven network of the Path program within each of the silos of the departments and the divisions of the facility. Everyone hired here is done so not only in just an acquaintance, but in an orientation that they understand what our mission is, and they actively want to participate in any way they can within their educational or experiential background to prop up the Path. So whether it's through internships, mentoring, tutoring, etc., I mean, you will see our Path kids as the program grows in our agronomy program, in our F&B program, in our culinary team. They'll be in and out of the coaching program. They're not, we definitely didn't want the Path to kind of sit out on its own and look like it's a separate piece of the property. You can't tell when these kids are on property that they're any different than any other kid here partaking in our activities.
Great. We've gotten 40 minutes in here, and we haven't talked about the golf course really. Which I know has been sort of the star of the show in early days. I've worked with Gil and Jim a bunch over the years, and they're going to be coming to Rock Creek here in DC and doing their thing. Dave, you mentioned that the analogy about the car and the limo, and we've talked to Andy Johnson about the park, and we believe this at National Links Trust, that the architecture of a municipal golf course, affordable golf course, there's no reason why it needs to be dumbed down, that it should be lively and interesting, that it's a better hook to the game, that you have to get people engaged, and especially as they're making that transition from maybe hitting balls at a top golf to the actual golf course, you want them to be intellectually and physically challenged and stimulated. And it seems like from everything I've heard that Gil and Jim and Dirk Ziff really nailed it down there. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about the golf course and how it's being received by the public.
Well, I mean, it's been incredibly received by anybody that's played it. It's a really high-end golf course. It's a big property. It's an expansive golf course on purpose. It's friendly. The one word that everybody seemed to kind of rally around in its design, from just the routing all the way through Grow In was just fun. You know, we all kind of have different opinions of what makes a good golf course good, but we all kind of can agree on something being fun. So the park is supposed to be intended to be, and I think they nailed it, is a fun golf course to play. It is, as you said, it is incredibly interesting to the eye as well as to the shot maker. There's a lot of traditional architectural design put into it, but it is forward enough, friendly enough for the beginner to get a golf ball around the golf course in a way where they want to play it again and they want to keep playing golf again, because it's not just, you know, kick yourself in the teeth, forced carries, penal rough, hazards everywhere, things that we tend to, I guess, associate on a postcard picture with good golf. But then when we play it ourselves, it makes it sometimes very frustrating. It's an incredibly smart design. Everything around it speaks to the cultural goals in the operation, from the walking forward culture we wanted to present, to the return to walking the game, to get into the game, to understand the benefit of walking while you play, to be able to walk the golf course. All of that kind of went into the design of the facility, and every bit of it just, you know, check every box. They hit the nail on the head and everything they wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, you touched on it, and I just saw a question pop up, so I'll just go right into it. This is from Tim Liddy. Hey, Tim. Tim's a golf course architect in his own right, so he's looking for some state secrets here. He is asked about the limited cart paths around the golf course and how they're working. And you know, as again, you just said that it's very intentional, that you wanted to encourage walking and walking forward. How's that worked out so far?
Great. I think I see his question. He's asking about wear. I don't see any excessive wear anywhere. You know, I think sometimes cart paths actually create more wear because they create pinch points. Everybody's, you know, either on them or off of them in a relatively similar place. We don't have continuous cart paths. The cart paths here are coquina shell around, and then many times they're one of the same in the tee and green complex areas. There's relatively zero distance from green to tee. By design, I said this is a walker-friendly, walking forward golf course. So the cart paths take you very far away from some of those playing surfaces, and are, I said, non-continuous. But the cart traffic, I mean, it's a wide open fairway design. There's actually some shared fairways out there with, I guess you call it scattered design as far as the carts going in various areas, and geolocating with fences, keeping them out of transition areas where the sandy terrain could cause a hazard. The course is held up very well. There's also an operational design in that we minimize cart traffic, and that we are still, even in the summer, cart prohibited in the mornings right now before 10 a.m. so that we do have more walking rounds than riding rounds. When we get into season, it'll be 12 noon before we let a golf cart on the golf course. So our goal is to try to play about half of our rounds cart rounds and half of our rounds walking rounds, with the predominant number of cart rounds being in the summer, and then the walking rounds obviously being in season in the winter here. So the cart traffic is minimal. So the wear and tear on the golf course has been fantastic since opening.
Right. And I commend you on that policy. Do you see any conflict between that and the concept of open golf?
No, not at all. You know, if you're 50-50 at something, I would hesitate for someone to blame us to be, you know, evil cart rulers, right? Or you know, it's 50-50. We're not trying to say 90-10. We're just trying to get to 50-50 where half our rounds are played. You know, and listen, there's people out there that prefer to play the game walking. We caught some early criticism, I guess, people just thinking, oh, well, everybody wants to ride. Well, you don't really know that if they're not allowed to have a choice. A lot of the facilities, at least in the metro Atlanta area prior to COVID, forced you to have a cart because this premonition that there's pace of play is better in a cart than without. And it's true in some areas where the golf course is strung out through a subdivision, but one in where in our case, it's built to promote walking. We see cart rounds 20 minutes longer than walking rounds on average since we've opened, even through the heat of the summer. So yeah, we're trying to be neutral. We're obviously walker friendly, but when giving someone the choice, they're still walking at 2 o'clock in the afternoon around here. It's not like it's a free for all when we let carts go out and walkers be damned and everybody's grabbing a cart. But we saw that in Atlanta too. It was a 9-hole golf course, so it was obviously easier to walk. But after COVID, when we did put carts back into the operation, the predominant number of rounds that we played up there were not cart rounds. It was people who walked enjoyed it. They enjoyed that everyone walks at a similar pace. We didn't have pace of play problems, as we're not experiencing here. It's quiet, it's peaceful. You go out and you feel like, my God, there's nobody on the golf course. You look at the tee sheet and we played 185 rounds. So if you have the facility and the infrastructure had a walking design in mind when it was built, man, use it. Take advantage of it. There's plenty of walkers out there.
Totally agree. I just wanted to, I'm sure you've heard it, right? I'm sure you've heard it from a few people in the public saying,
"Oh yeah, we've heard of it."
No, look. To me, golf is a game that's supposed to be played on foot. The health benefits of playing on foot, I think what you're doing is really commendable, and it's great. It's great. So, I just want to ask one quick question, and then we'll maybe throw it open to some Q&A real quick. Our hour's coming up. What did you learn from Bobby Jones that you were putting into action down there at the park, or and this is sort of like, okay, if you were going to give advice to someone else going forward, about a similar type project, what would you put out there?
Oh gosh, wow. I used the word before, be nimble. I'm not going to say golfers are resilient people, but I think a lot of times we're very reluctant to change. Coming from a daily fee background where there's so many pressures of, as I mentioned, of returns on investments and et cetera. Sometimes we're scared to take chances. So we'll play the conservative card because we kind of know the outcome. Golfers are very curious, I believe. People, it's an incredible game that's always changing every round, even if you're playing the same golf course over and over again. So I think as a whole, golfers are more open to change than I think we give them credit. And they're also obviously very good about giving feedback. So, taking a chance on something, trying something new, and then just listening and being receptive to that and making the decision on your own for your own opportunities and your own operation and adjusting and being nimble to that. I hope we see more of that because I think there's some opportunities. Like I said, we backed into the whole walking versus riding thing because of COVID in Atlanta. But what it showed us is that, we thought people preferred riding, but it wasn't that. It was that they just weren't given an option to walk. And we're seeing that down here in, the middle of a tropical climate where you give them the opportunity to do something that they just weren't able to do before. And believe it or not, there's a lot of people that prefer it or enjoy it. And maybe they didn't even know they did it until they tried it. So just being open-minded and not being afraid to try something for the sake of giving a different perspective on the game.
Right. Dave, you're new to, I know you've been a golfer, but you're new to the golf space and you're less than a year in, but what have you learned that you think some of our listeners or watchers could really take away from going forward?
Gosh, I'm always learning. I mean, tee sheets to everything else, the things that I didn't know about being a recreational golfer. What I've been most surprised at, and that I didn't think that how this was going to go, but the appetite for non-golf activity at a golf course. We started playing some family fun Fridays or Saturday events, and I put science on the docket or art or something that really didn't fit. You wouldn't find it at a golf course. And the amount of parents and kids that would show up to these events just for that, but also building trust that there's a golf course that I could eat at, that my kids are welcomed at, that they can also learn golf, that perhaps down the road that I want to take a lesson or be part of a kids camp or a clinic. The way that those can cross-pollinate, that was an eye-opener for me. Even though I came from the non-golf world, I was like, this probably won't work. It's a golf course. The people come for golf. I mean, last Friday night we had live music. Of course, we have music throughout the whole property. Kids are on the par 3 course. They're on the putting course. We had a volcano build from our STEM teacher. And then we were giving out we were doing popsicles and putting. I mean, hundreds of kids out there, right? And you're like, I don't understand, but this seems to work. Saturday night, we did a movie on the 18th green. And people came from all over the community that have never been here before just to watch the movie. And I think don't be afraid to try something that might not be what you would think people would attend something for.
Great. Well, thank you guys. We're getting close. We got about 5 more minutes. I've got a question from Sean Pearson. Sean writes, hello and congrats. We love your model. We are friends of Bobby Jones Golf Club, Inc., a 501c3 established in 2013 for our 1925 Donald Ross designed Sarasota, Florida Muni. However, we've had substantial pushback from the city government and management staff. Question 1, who and what about the park's local municipal government was open to and key to success of your agreement? And then the second question was Gil Hanse's, and they say we love him too, fee. I know the answer to the second one, but I don't know the first. So Brian, I'll let you jump in on that.
Thanks, Sean. And so look, the municipal government in West Palm was open to the idea of revitalizing this property. However, because I think this was the second RFP that was coming up on its expiration and not looking like it's going to get across the finish line, it was about to probably go back out to the market, so to speak, and most likely be turned into a development not golf related. So the city was giving golf one last chance to come out of the ground, and they're better telling the story than I could ever imagine. But with Seth and honestly with Mayor James, I don't know if it was a different mayor if it would have happened. And those of us who know Seth, I mean, just you don't have to say anything else, right? He can make things happen magically. It was a perfect marriage. The two of them, was a handshake deal to get us out of the ground. So Mayor James really wanted to see the park succeed, and the vision that Seth painted at that time, not knowing what Dave and his team and the rest of us has done since then, the mayor was fully bought in. That was being a mission-driven golf facility, just sparked his curiosity and his passion for the city. So it's obviously it's a match made in heaven, and it's a wonderful situation. I can also understand where your frustration is coming from with the city, is it was completely opposite in Atlanta. The Bobby Jones Golf Course project was basically 12 years in the making, and the city of Atlanta had zero interest in it coming out of the ground or changing. And just literally almost pretty much just ignored it until it got enough steam and the right players in behind it that the state got involved. And through at that time, Mayor Kasim Reed, they didn't threaten eminent domain, but the state really wanted the property and to see the Bobby Jones Golf Course in Atlanta succeed. And in a commissioner's meeting that I was at with the Georgia section, the mayor just basically asked one last time for the commission to approve a land swap with the city and the state of Georgia for that piece of property. Otherwise, the state was just going to come in and take it. The commissioners approved the land swap. The state of Georgia then had ownership of the Bobby Jones parcel. And in 12 months from that happening, the Bobby Jones Golf Course came out of the ground. So, I guess the moral of the story is you do have to have this love of the municipal governing body and the not-for-profit to share in that mission. But otherwise, there's really a hard way to get it accomplished. It was luck in Atlanta that land swap came. And then of course, thankfully here, there was definitely no pushback from the city, and Mayor James and Seth, getting together. It was obviously made the right reasons to get everything else done and get this thing over the finish line here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that concept though of the mission driven is really important. If you're just talking about a golf course and restoring a historic golf course, I mean, look, for those of us who love the game and are passionate about golf architecture, that really appeals to us. But that's I think a tough sell to sort of city bureaucrats and right. I mean, it has to be for the good of the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's see. Sorry, we got one more question. Have some of the more passive beginning learning facilities been well received? Do you find beginners feel invited and open to self-learning the game outside of your programs? What facilities do you find are used the most in this way?
Wow. All of the above. Yeah. I mean, we've found there's obviously, we got an issue here where the driving range has not been utilized in its full capacity. And then the snag area has just very recently come online with us since kind of that soft opening in April. But, both facilities up there and down here, one thing we realized is that, there's beginner areas that are conducive to learning and introducing the game. But you know what? There's avid golfers that see that stuff and are like, let's go do that too. I mean, snag golf's fun. It's kind of like pickleball of golf, right? I mean, we got people that are single-digit handicaps who will go out and play snag golf with their kids. You go out and look at the par 3 golf course, the Himalayas. There's all kinds of people from all walks of skill level playing it. It's not like you have to just give this world-class facility for the avid golfer and they don't want to mess with anything else because it's just silly. You see all kinds of people playing and utilizing all parts of the facility, and that's what makes it welcoming and inviting. And it's not so much of we're worried about people learning as we just want them to keep playing. They're not everybody's trying to become a single-digit scratch golfer. They just want to play, have fun, and the benefit they get out of playing is going to be different with each individual.
I think the week goes back to our inviting culture. So Friday nights is a big event for us, and I probably have 50 putters or so in my office that I give out to every kid I see that comes in that doesn't have a putter, but I have a number of adult putters too. And so I see a lot of people come in on a date night or coming in. We have drink holders that are designated for which holes they're on. And so seeing people come in that, adults that haven't ever putted before, like they can come out and putt on the putting course, or they can go take the par 3 for a run in under the lights at night and not feel there any pressure of being pushed or a time frame. It's complete the hole, wait for your next turn. I think that's just a testament of what we believe is the park. We are inclusive and acceptable of all. We want people to be out there for that, but also the people that want to get better.
Yeah. Brian and Dave, thank you guys so much for taking the time today. This has been a great discussion. I've learned so much. I can't wait to get down there and check out the park. Brian, I think in your first answer to the question, you said you backed away from it. You said you want to change the perception of the game of golf, but you kind of hedged. I don't hedge. There's nothing wrong with it. The golf could use some change, and you guys are doing really, really great work. So, look, we want this game to be inclusive. We want more people to enjoy this wonderful game, and you guys are right on the forefront. So, congrats, and again, I look forward to getting down there and visiting with you guys.
Thanks, Will. We appreciate the time.
Thanks, Dave.
So
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs, absolutely. 3-peat.
Let's do it.